Okay, now I have gotten that last piece of leatherette off, another sticky mess, and a letter A. I figured I'd record that before I go cleaning the last of this residue off, because on this part of it, it actually cleaned off the writing that was on there. So I'm going to clean the rest of this up, and we'll start with the template. Now that I've gotten the camera sufficiently clean and all that excess residue off from the previous covering, I am going to take the template that I printed out, that I found on the internet, and I'm just going to use scissors, and I'm going to cut this out carefully. Once I get it cut out, I will lay it on the camera and make sure my sizing is right. I did a preliminary check when I printed this out, and it looked pretty good. And I think next time I do this, I will actually print it on a little bit thicker paper so I can have a kind of a permanent template for future reference. This is just like a regular copy paper that I printed it on this time. But I'm going to go around all these lines and cut it out. I'm usually pretty good with scissors, so I can cut the lines pretty straight. You can use a straight edge and a ruler to cut the straight lines if you need. But I'm confident enough in my scissor skills that I think I can cut this out well enough. And I'm going to take this piece, finish up that corner, and let's see, this is going to be the piece right here. And as long as I'm inside these ridges, I should be okay. What I'll probably do is take this paper, lay it out onto my leather piece from this bag. I'll lay it on here, and I think what I'll do is maybe trace it out with a Sharpie around this edge to actually as my guideline for cutting, rather than trying to cut around this because it might move around a little bit. So this has lines in it. I'm going to run the lines lengthwise on the camera. So that's going to be my next step, is laying them out on the leather and cutting the pieces out. Before I actually proceed, I said my next step was going to be tracing this out on the leather. The next step is actually going to have to be getting the leather off of the bag. So what I'm going to do, that's the biggest piece. So I think what I'm going to do is look for maybe the second nicest piece of leather on here, because it is going to be the bottom of the camera, so it's not that crucial. I think I'll save this one panel here, seems to be the best leather, thickest, in best condition, so I'll leave that. So this has a lining inside, so what I'll do is kind of cut open and try to get inside here, and then I'll separate the lining from the leather. Go ahead and cut all around, and I already have the back of the leather right here, so that makes that easy to access. And I'm just gonna cut around the edges of these so I have my plain old flat pieces of leather. I can definitely tell a difference already from one side to the other on this bag, not knowing its quality. I think it's leather from India, and they tend to use a thinner leather from what I've seen in products from that country. So there's one panel off of the bag. Now I have my two pieces of leather. I have that one that's a little bit thicker, and I said I was going to use it for the top, but I might just use this for the bottom, just because it's thicker, and the bottom of the camera is probably going to take a little more abuse. This is the second best piece, which I will use for the top. Little wrinkles in it, but kind of adds character, and I might even be able to get away with using something over here maybe for the center panel. Maybe I'll use another piece for the part that goes around the prism on the top. And I'm kind of testing the fitment of the each piece of the pattern. So I have this one that goes up underneath the prism, and it's lining up inside the ridge still, so that looks good. The other piece here, inside the ridge, and then the piece that goes on top of the prism, same thing, it's inside the ridge. Would look interesting with a white covering, wouldn't it? But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do black on black, because it's what I have. And then I have the other two pieces for the bottom. I just have to figure out how I'm going to cleanly cut that circle out. I think what I'll do is I have one of these little tiny utility knives. And I think it'll have a good enough point, oops, something on my blade, good enough point that I can cut that circle out reasonably well.